CPA. These are the support lines for the DCarsonCPA practice. We're using the MFC format here, but these are the broad lines of DCarsonCPA, a little bit about how they evolved and what they're about. The DCarsonCPA lines are our lines of research. They're depth lines in global financial decision-making research. They're built out. They encompass entity to economy lines and economy to entity. That's to look at the entity and how it connects to the economy. So not just to think of the financials in a unidimensional standpoint, but to think about what they mean in relation to an entity, a market, a sector, a product, and those type of things. Started out with the analyst skills because as we progressed on the lines, audit to CFO controlling, you get the debits and credits down, you've got the controls in place, financials, accounting, taxes, and as you reach a continuing line of expertise, you're more and more thinking about analytics and how does this tell me about the big picture. So we grew with strong interest to grow in economic research, statistics, from the base of financials, we grew into the lines of policy analysis. That led us to risk models, risk research, thinking about the larger picture and where an entity meets the economy and inventory, supply lines, logistics, all that good stuff, and what's happening in the global economy, state and local, all factors that feed into your success lines for an entity. And then talking about the underlying elements, form of structure, you've got form of governance, entities, and you've got individuals and families as the ultimate stakeholders in the economy. We built the practice in the time of the outfalling of the financial crisis, and our experience, leading up to the corporate walk of things had been growing up in the 80s and 90s, seeing a strong economy, seeing good times, and then, we had, of course, the dot-com bubbles and things like that we've all ventured through, but nothing like this recession now. This so-called recession has been pretty deep. We get some favorable reports in the economy, talking about employment reports. Those are feel-good reports. They're interesting. They make you feel a little bit better. But in reality, we should be looking at the participation rates and the underemployment, because you have people within statistics that are working for a few hours a week, hardly enough to take care of a family, but they're being, it's kind of a rosy picture. So we're painting everything a little bit rosy. The economy is still definitely tough. And that makes the core skills of economics, because when we had started this practice, we began with the lines and we started to think about, well, it's a crisis in the economy. It affects families, individuals, families, communities. It's got the stakeholders of government. These are the three branches here in icons. Entities, nonprofits, and NGOs. It's supposed to be a walk-in center over there. And basically, these are all the stakeholders. How does this all work together? And certainly the entity level financials, microfinancials explain a little bit. But in order to get that big picture, you had to map up to look at macro financials. And I was interested to help in the policy lines. And sort of the genesis of this was going back to a time where I'd applied to Kennedy School of Governance. Government wanted to get an MPA. Things didn't work out at that time, partially because my heart was a little bit balancing. The prevailing advice was get a start in entity lines, then you'll have better skills to bring back to government. And so we were leaning in that way. And there was also some bad advice we received back there to delay advanced education in lieu of experience. Looking back, I think that was a bad line that was out there, because remember that education is the one thing you get they never take away from you. The rest of the things, you can make a fortune, lose a fortune, but the knowledge that you gain always stays with you, and hopefully it'll always help you solve a problem in some way or the next. So right now, we have these big lines. These lines are purposely big. They were built for leadership support, to think about someone in the executive branch, someone in the legislative branch, someone in the judicial branch, helping them solve big problems, or to look at the global lines, where there's another function. One of the binding elements of a structure of a global economy is certainly the structure of government. So there's some adaptability to take these lines and then look how are similar problems handled in other points with similar systems abroad. And there's some 270 countries in the world. So when you start looking into financials, there's a population of 270 countries doing things their different ways. And you might look through the lines and think, what's similar, what's dissimilar about that? And I think the value of that is then you start to see the connective lines where economic research, statistics, financials begin to bind the world, macro financials in this case. And then you start to think about policy and how does policy really affect us. And, our lines in the policy, we got concerned about the economy, how difficult it was for families, for jobs, for everything. Forget about it. So we started thinking about, we need to know more about policy and how policy is actively guiding things. And also policy is a function of, we work with you on taxation. We can help you with eligible credits and deductions, to help you fill out your forms and filings in the way that we're being requested to, as per the guidelines that we see for taxation and whatnot, and for compliance or for financials under the standards and GAAP. But then there's this whole other line where you can have tax decisions that are happening at a whole nother level, which is policy. And unfortunately, most of us are pretty busy, not very able to keep up with policy. So I think one of the interesting things about the knowledge age is a better ability to connect with policy and maybe have some more interaction. And that's not a bad thing, because I think too many people tune out. It's understandable. We've got a big picture in the macroeconomy, and people don't want to be that focused on it. There is some benefit to live your life and trust that all these decisions are well handled. We can help certainly on elements of that, and then perhaps that also explains why we're concerned, because we know that certain decisions, like in the deficit and debt, are very complicated, and they require help. They require a more common understanding of each one of us of what we might be able to do to help out. And I think that's having better conversations. It starts with as simple as taking some extra steps of education, being a more involved participant, and then thinking about some basic economic rules and the facts that we have unlimited wants and needs matched to relatively scarce resources, as you're going to hear me say everywhere. And so what happens then is statistical optimization becomes one of the keys. We've got to find better ways to work with existing financials to meet the needs and to pay down the debt structure, which is pretty relevant. Debt structure is happening at a city, at a state, city, regional, state, local, national level, and it's a problem, and globally you'll see resonance in the lines of problems that all governments have, are these pensions. Pensions are a problem on local and regional and state lines. They're a problem on national lines. It's one of the crises of our age is how we deal with Social Security and the pension funding, and commercial pensions are not always in the best of state, so we built the line on pensions to help. DCarsonCPA is a broad solution. We like the opportunity to work in support of economic research. If those opportunities exist, we certainly bring strong skills. We've mapped out lines of global economic research, statistics, financials, law, technology, and teamwork. And so behind the scenes, we have a great ability to use those skills to port into lines, from the obvious lines in financial sector, from places where we've worked like insurance, broker-dealers, asset management, or to port it out to other lines that may not have been the exact place we were, but have very strong parallels, because at the end of the day, we all work with financials. And I find that there's some consistent themes that we all have financials, we all have some deal with real estate, we all have health, we all have electricity. So a lot of these things are common. They run through all financials. When we start to work with global financial decision-making research, it all connects together. It makes us a strong asset. Originally, we were building on the analyst side. We're open to help you on those type of roles where they're open. And we also know that that same knowledge can be used and turned inward to help an entity, to help a branch of government, being the executive, legislative, or judicial branch, or it could be to help a family, or it could be to help NGOs or nonprofits. DCarsonCPA is about big lines of global financial decision-making research, the ability to work with economics, statistics, financials, legal, technology, and communications with strong cross skills. Technology and communications is the key to building teamwork, to building awareness cycles, and we turn the knowledge inward, not for the opportunity to deal with the buying and selling of entities, but to think about solutions in the economy where financials connect. In the future, there may be roles where you would invite us in where we can grow in a different path. They were lines built for financial analysis, built for investment analysis, but we use them for the purpose of entity-level analysis. And there's no shortage of entities or individual families in the economy in needs of help. The challenge is really getting the message out. And I guess one of the late-learned challenges is that you can have all these great skills, but they're probably maybe 30% of the mix is your technical expertise. The rest is your ability to communicate and get the message out. So DCarsonCPA is our line of active outreach for awareness, for your awareness, to the points where we can help in the economy on financials. We're here as a leadership support line, a management support line, a line that can help on staff training and development, and as an outreach line to think about the individuals and families as stakeholders in the economy, and to the key points where entities meet in the overall economy, being those industry, nonprofit, NGO, or governmental. Because at the end of the day, in this world, when you break it down and you look at the national lines, you look at the state lines, the regional, and the city lines, it's at the end of the day about individuals and families as stakeholders and finding the balance between the entities and the stakeholder needs. And that's a complex equation. You want to have open lines for growth, and you also want to have return accountability to communities. So in a complex time, I'm not expecting that we'll answer all things here, but certainly many of the solutions lie in the ability to cross-connect solutions and skill sets, and for policy analysis, risk models, financials, economic and statistical research, and many of the related lines where we connect with technology. DCarsonCPA is here to help. We want to work with you on your support lines, whether it's on your direct financials or whether it's on research projects you have or building new technology to solve problems the project management, business analyst, and technology skills we have that root to programming at a young age can certainly help. I'm Dean Carson. Hope you'll drop by DCarsonCPA, and we appreciated this chance to bring you more on the MFC lines, talking about the big picture of where DCarsonCPA can help. Thank you.